If you don't have it in your hands already, stop what you're doing, go grab your guitar right now. We are going to learn some 80s classic metal style riffs in the key of D minor. Alright guys, we're going to jump right into this lesson. This is going to be awesome, by the way, but make sure you hang around till the end of the video for tone talk. I've actually got two different tones that I'm using for this video, and I'll share some other cool stuff with you as well. So let's get to learning these really cool 80s classic heavy metal style riffs in the key of D minor. Alright, so here's riff number one. I'm going to play it at what I consider normal speed, which I don't even know what that is because I'm making this stuff up as we go, and then I'll break it down note for note for you. Okay, here we go. Alright, so that has that obvious Ozzy type feel to it, and very much that kind of like taking you back to the 80s heavy metal style of guitar playing. First of all, it's important to understand that I am in standard tuning. I'm pretty much always in standard tuning, but most of you guys know that by now. Basically, I'm going to slow this down for you, okay? And hopefully I can play it right as I play it slower. Sometimes it's harder to play slower than it is to play fast. Here we go. So as you can see and hear, there's some back and forth going on, and this is a great exercise to practice going back and forth between strings. In other words, you're not just playing a riff on one string, you're constantly on that 5th fret. It's the D string where you're moving around between that 8th and 7th fret. And see how I'm going back to that A string 5th fret each time after I hit one of those notes on the D string. And then we just finish off with a so 8 7 5, then back to 7 5, then 8 7 on your next string over 8 7 then 5. Now let's add something to that real quick, and I don't know what we're going to add, but let's just think of something on the fly here and see if it sounds cool. Alright, so that's just an example. Just add some power chords to that. You remember we're in the key of D minor here, so you can go to a B flat or C, or I actually went to that A before I went to that B flat. So just learn that riff and then play around by adding some chords to that, kind of make it a progression there. Time for metal riff number 2 in D minor. Alright, so this metal riff in D minor is a little bit different from the first one that we played. The first one we played, we were playing that D on the A and D strings. This time we're playing the D with the open D string and then the G string 2nd fret. So our foundational chord that we're surrounding this riff by is this. Again, the D string's open, G string 2nd fret. And we're also integrating some alternate picking. Remember the first riff we focused more on the downstrokes. Here we're focusing more on the alternate picking, and what I'm doing here is just so I'm hitting that D power chord, but then I'm starting to alternate pick as I bring my first finger off of that 2nd fret on the G string. and basically those D and G strings are open at that point. And we're moving that back and forth. So let me just slow that down for you so you can get the cadence here. Now, if you'll notice, when I'm alternate picking, I'm only alternate picking that one string, that open D string. So I do that, and then when I go to hit the actual chord itself, both strings at the same time, then I'm just doing the one downstroke for that, but then I'm going back to the alternate picking on the one string. So it's almost like every other time you hear the regular D power chord 0-2, frets 0-2, and then you hear 0-0, both strings open. So let me go through that one more time, and hopefully this is making sense. Okay, so hopefully you can capture that. Now, what I'm doing after that is we're going into some power chords here, and what makes this riff kind of sound more evil and just more wicked is we're going to a chord that's somewhat out of the D minor progression. We're going to an E flat there, and I'm playing this chord a little bit differently. I'm playing it like this. So normally you'd play that E flat like this. But instead, again, we're doing this. And all that is, again, we're on the D and A strings, and the frets are 1 and 2. I give that D string a palm mute, and then we're on frets 1 and open, 0. So it's like this. Then we go back into the alternate picking riff with the open D there, and then the second time around we're going to play a different power chord. Almost sounds the same because we're going to go back to that E flat, but before we do that, we're actually going to move up to an F. And we're playing that power chord a little bit differently too. Your normal F would sound like this. Again, we're on just the D and G strings. This entire riff here is just on those two strings. But instead of playing the regular F power chord, we're playing it like this. So instead of 3 and 5, we're playing 3 and 2. Now, we're only playing that just one time, and then we're quickly going to go back to that E flat. But we're going to play the E flat power chord with, you know, the normal way, so to speak, that root note and fifth note. So it's going to be like this. Now, in between doing that, I'm palm muting the open D string there. And you can play around with things like that, those little bitty nuances that are in between riffs. You can kind of play around with that. Maybe instead of palm muting that open note, try hanging on that 3rd fret and palm muting that before you go to that E flat. That's just a different way that you can kind of make it your own there. So let's go through this entire riff again. I'll play it kind of at normal speed, which really isn't that fast, and I'll try to slow it down for you as well. Now, you can always add to that if you want. And again, I don't know what I'm going to do here, but we're just going to throw something else in and see what it sounds like. So let's try something here. So I just threw something in that wasn't even in the key of D minor. It kind of followed suit with that E flat, right? You're more of in a G minor progression at that point. And sometimes, just to go to show you, sometimes you can mesh together, two different progressions in two different keys, and it really helps spice the song up so that the entire song isn't in the same key. All right, time for metal riff number 3 in the key of D minor, and this is going to be much different from the first 2 riffs that we played. Here's what it sounds like. Now, this is one of my personal favorite things about playing in the key of D minor. You can just strike that chord down there and just get a really just mean rock and roll, hard rock tone out of that. And what we're doing to make that sound more filling and a little heavier is we're actually playing the 5th note first. In other words, we're not playing that regular open D first. We're playing it, but we're not starting with it. We're actually starting with the open A. But we're leaving that last note open. You know, a regular D, you're playing this. That sounds kind of country. But instead, we're making it a little darker and evil by, again, leaving that last note, that E string open, and also playing that A, hitting that A first. So it's like this. So this is really power chord driven after we play that D chord there. And we're going from the D to the F. Now, let me back up just a second. I'm not just playing that D, I'm actually arpeggiating some notes there. So let me go through that part first. I almost forgot about that. All I'm doing there after I just strum that entire chord all the way across, and I kind of do a slow strum, by the way. These are the strings, not the notes. So B, G, E, B, G. Then we go straight to that F power chord. And I do a little riff action there on the power chord. So basically all I'm doing is we're playing the power chord, which are frets 1 and 3 on those first 2 strings. I'll strike it again, palm mute that first note, and then I'll lift up the finger that I use to hit that second note, which is my pinky in this case, and I'll have those other 2 strings barred. So it's like this. So after that, we move up to a G power chord. Then we're going to play 2 more power chords here. We're going to kind of play what would be an A, but we're playing this power chord a little bit differently. We're going to play this on the E and A strings, frets 5 and 8. So instead of this, instead of 5 and 7, 5 and 8. Just a really, really cool sound. I love those chords. There's a fancy technical name for it. You want to tell me what that is? Leave it in the comments, but I just love those types of chords. But then we go from there to the B flat. And we've got some movement there as well. So we're on frets 6 and 8, then we're going to go frets 6 and 7, and then back to 6 and 8. Okay, so the whole thing is like this. So that chord, that A chord we hit right before that B flat is very quick and snappy. And there's a little palm mute also. I'll strike the chord, do a little palm mute before going to that B flat. Then we'll palm mute again, and then we'll go back and forth between those other notes there. So let's run through that riff in its entirety one more time. Now it's time for you and I to have a little chat about the thing we love to talk about the most, and that's gear. It's time for some tone talk. And I've actually got two different tones I want to share with you. So first, we're going to start out with what you just heard in the lesson here. Now, I was using my EVH 5153 EL34 tube amp. That's the 50 watt head with the matching 212 cabinet. And I didn't have this going through my studio. What you heard was just kind of out in the open here. And I'm using my kind of new, I've been using this mic for probably about a month now, my Rode Video Mic NTG. Now, moving on to the amp, I want to go through my settings really quickly here. And of course, my longtime subscribers, thank you, by the way. You guys pretty much know what all my settings are. They're very, very simple. But the caveat here is I'm using the blue channel of the EVH, not the fire-breathing gain channel. And that's because I wanted to complement this style of playing. Again, it's that 80s metal feel, that classic heavy metal feel. I wanted to complement that style with the appropriate tone, and the blue channel, man, it just does it. I mean, it does it quite well. So you see my bass is boosted just a hair here, not too much, and that's because it's just the guitar. If I were playing in a full mix, I might cut that bass back just a hair. My mids are cut just a little here, and that's just kind of what I prefer. I've got my treble boosted to almost about 7 here. I've also got my presence boosted in this case as well. I kind of want that more bright and gritty tone, if that makes sense. My gain on the blue channel is actually cranked all the way up. See, this blue channel is much different from the red channel, which again, that's that fire-breathing gain channel. And I believe that's done on purpose for the blue channel to give you that diversity in different styles of music that you can play with this amp. I know it sounds like I'm trying to sell you on the amp, but hey, I dig this amp, man. It's awesome. It's very diverse. I can play practically any style of music I want. I should become a spokesperson for EVH. Hey, maybe they'll sponsor me. I'd love that because I do love this amp. One thing I'll tell you, I don't have a noise gate. This channel, at the volume I'm playing at, it doesn't need a noise gate at all. I do have a distortion pedal, my MXR distortion pedal, but I've got the distortion all the way down, kind of using this as you would use an overdrive pedal to kind of just clean up some of the bottom end from this channel, from the blue channel, and it seems to work out and gives it a little bit more, a little smoother punch, if that makes sense. So that's what I use for the lessons. Now, for the full mix that you heard in the beginning of the video, I did something completely different. I didn't use this amp at all, and let me let you hear that one more time. Now for that tone that you heard, I went back to my studio here and used plugins for that. I actually used Positive Grid's Bias Amp 2's JCM 800. And again, you know, I'm looking for an appropriate tone for this style to complement this style of guitar playing, and that amp sim just, to me, did an awesome job. Now, I will say this, I used this amp with the Celestion speakers. So you guys know I always record 2 rhythm guitar tracks. For one rhythm guitar track, I use the V30 Celestion speaker that comes with the Elite Bias Amp 2 package here. And then for the other speaker, I used the Greenback Sim, the Celestion Greenback speaker. Now, I used the Bias Amp 2 amp. This is the Bias Amp 2 amp, and I pulled it into the FX2 plugin so that I could use the overdrive pedal, because I love the overdrive pedal that FX2 has, and that just really makes the tone, again, a bit smoother, just like I was using the distortion pedal with the EVH amp. It just smooths everything out. Now, if you're confused about, well, Jason, you use both plugins together, how did that happen? I've actually got a really helpful video. This video has helped thousands of people that have been trying to use these 2 plugins together, and it's kind of weird, but actually it's easy to use. I show you exactly how to do that in this video. So you may find that helpful if you're using Positive Grid's Bias Amp 2 and FX2 and you want to use those together. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions whatsoever in the comments. I always love to read your comments below. And remember, I am giving away a free guitar practice guide called Metal Riffs and Licks. So make sure you download your copy of that if you don't have that yet. There's a link in the description of this YouTube video to get that. And of course, I've got other links in there where you can listen to my albums and my music on all streaming platforms. I also have a link to my online shop where you can actually buy my latest CD, Masterpiece. Where's it at? It's right here. That CD right there. I've got that album on CD, Masterpiece. And I've got a lot of cool merch like the t-shirt I'm wearing. This is from my heavy metal workout album. I still love this logo. Sometimes I'll wear this shirt like 2 days in a row even though it's dirty. I know you shouldn't do that. And I've got some other links where you can support me as well, and I always appreciate that. Guys, until the next video, as always, keep it metal. And in the case of this video, keep it 80s metal.